Have you ever disappeared from someone's life not to make them miss you, but to see if they'd even notice you were gone? People with a dismissive avoidant attachment style don't react the way you expect. While you're hoping they miss you, they're often feeling relieved. While you're waiting for a message, they're embracing the silence. And that makes you start to wonder, did they ever really care? Or was I always just replaceable? But the most painful part isn't that they haven't come back. It's that you feel invisible, like you never even mattered in their world. The irony? While you're drowning in confusion and missing them, they're finally breathing easier, and that makes you feel like you failed. You believe that if you went silent, if you walked away, they'd finally see your worth. But here's what no one tells you. Silence doesn't change a dismissive avoidant, but who you become during that silence just might. What happens when the person you used to chase suddenly realizes they no longer hold emotional power over you? This isn't a tactic to win them back. It's a transformation where you stop trying to prove your worth to anyone and start becoming someone who's hard to lose. You're waiting for a sign, a message, a trace of regret, but what you get instead is complete silence. And the most painful part isn't that they said nothing, it's the feeling that they didn't need to say anything at all. No panic, no collapse, no emotional chaos, just peace. And that's when you start to suffocate, because you believed your absence would make them realize your worth. But with someone who has a dismissive avoidant attachment style, distance doesn't feel like loss, it feels like relief. They don't need to lose you to panic. They just need to lose you to breathe. You're disoriented because this silence doesn't match what the internet promised you. If you go no contact, they'll go crazy missing you. But here's the truth no one told you. Avoidants don't seek love the way you do. They don't feel safe when things get emotionally intense. They feel safe when they're in control of their space and their internal state. And when you disappear, the first thing they feel isn't loss, it's regaining control. They get their space back. They no longer feel the emotional expectations, the subtle pressure you may have unknowingly placed on them. They don't miss you in a romantic, urgent way. They think, finally, I can think clearly again. And yes, that hurts, deeply. It feels like your love was just a weight they couldn't wait to drop. But if you stop and look deeper, you'll see something else. This isn't heartlessness, it's self-protection. Dismissive avoidants don't shut off feelings because they don't care. They shut them off because they don't know how to handle them. The more they care, the more threatening it feels. Because emotion equals loss of control, and loss of control, to them, is a form of psychological threat. So no, you weren't wrong for hoping they'd miss you. But you need to understand, the way they miss is not the way you miss. And the emptiness won't hit them right away. It comes only after the initial relief fades. The real danger is this. If you chase after them the moment you sense they aren't missing you, you only confirm their deepest fear that closeness equals loss of freedom. As you begin to realize that silence isn't the crushing absence you expected, you simultaneously uncover the psychological world behind their emotional wall. You've heard it said, they chase comfort through control, not closeness. Now that phrase rings loud and clear, weighty enough to leave you astonished. Control here isn't merely about them guarding their schedules, phones, or personal boundaries. It's a powerful defense mechanism that protects them from what they perceive as the threat of overwhelming emotions. In a dismissive avoidance inner landscape, the more intense the feeling, the more unsteady they become, like an ice skater on thin ice, who fears one wrong move will send them plunging. That's why intimacy doesn't always symbolize safety for them. To a dismissive avoidant, the more intimate they get, the more they must share, the more expectations they face, and the more they risk dependency. And for them, dependency equals restraint, and restraint signifies loss of autonomy. You have been their emotional thermostat, the person who allowed them to vent and feel, only to rush to slam the door tight again. You were the mirror, reflecting every nuance of emotion. Your calm would soften them, your storms would terrify them. They attempted to shatter that mirror because it forced them to confront a painful truth. They could feel, but they couldn't bear the sensation. Yet, the harder they tried to erase you, the more secretly they needed you. This deep-seated conflict between craving understanding and fearing engulfment pierces your heart with a double-edged sword. You feel compassion for yourself. Having opened your heart too wide, you feel compassion for them, knowing they genuinely lack the tools to balance freedom with connection. Your moment of silence wasn't merely a test for them. It confronted the autopilot defenses they had built. With no one invading their space, their calloused exterior became visible. That chill, unyielding shell gave way to fragile strings trembling beneath, whispering, "Even if I try to deny it, I feel empty without you." Dismissive avoidants equate vulnerability with weakness, so they double down on control. They regulate physical space meeting times, messaging windows, even the timing of their breaths when you're close. They regulate emotions, keeping their heart at a safe, low temperature. Any attempt by you to stir emotion, a reassuring word or a worried question, registers as a false alarm that must be shut down. Yet within that very silence, you touch the most delicate chord, their need for connection. They won't whisper, "I miss you," but they'll drop subtle breadcrumbs alike on an old post, a neutral check-in text, or a random phone call. Those tiny signals broadcast, "I still need you, but only when I can control the risk to my autonomy." You now see why the advice to be patient often fails. Because patience here isn't mere waiting, it's waiting until you've truly become someone they can't control, an independent soul capable of thriving with or without their touch. And that becomes the turning point. When you cease to be their thermostat, you become the catalyst that piques their curiosity. They'll start to wonder, why does the world keep spinning without me opening the door to my heart? Why didn't I collapse into the void I created? That moment forces them to confront their true self, a soul torn between soaring freedom and the yearning for safe harbor. And in that very instant, when they lift their head after a sigh of relief, the control barrier dissolves, making room for genuine connection. They realize control isn't the final solution. Instead, the answer lies in balancing two worlds, the realm of their freedom and the warmth you alone can provide. After you've truly grasped the mechanism of control and the solitude hidden beneath the avoidance hardened exterior, it's time for a pivotal shift. They don't come back for the person you once were. They come back for the version of you you've become. When your silence ends, it isn't driven by their agony, but by their curiosity about someone no longer determined to carry the burden of emotional safety for them. You are no longer their emotional thermostat, ready to toggle their emotional climate at a moment's notice. You have become a self-reliant individual who no longer defines yourself as their healer, but as your own champion. That is precisely what they are drawn to. They seek someone who no longer retreats at the flood of feelings, but stands composed before emotions like a lighthouse, shining steadfast through stormy seas. Imagine a sailor lost at sea, amid a raging tempest, unable to see the horizon. They desperately need a fixed beacon. The old you, always clinging to stave off their fears, was merely a makeshift lifeline. But the new you, emanating an inner, unwavering light, becomes the true anchor guiding them home. That is the magnetic pull they cannot resist. And here's the most beautiful part. You didn't transform for them. You transformed for yourself. During your no-contact phase, you poured energy into cultivating self-esteem, diving into passions, and reconnecting with your dreams. When they brush past your life again, they encounter someone so remarkably different that ignoring you feels impossible. A vibrant individual, unafraid of distance and unbound by validation. In that moment, they realize absence didn't break them, it revealed your emergence. The paradigm shift happens when they ask themselves, why does this version of them stand strong without me? They don't return to demand you back. They return to experience a source of energy no longer reliant on their presence. That is the deepest motivator. Establishing clear boundaries and refusing to overextend emotionally declares, I can thrive without you. Yet simultaneously, you demonstrate that reunion doesn't hinge on power dynamics, but on the synergy of two independent selves. This fresh dynamic makes them pause and seriously consider returning. Remember, the choice is always yours. You don't wait for them to reply to your text. You live your life expanding your social circle, pursuing hobbies, breathing in freedom. They see your radiant smile, your immersion in new projects, and wonder, can I engage with someone so resilient without encroaching on their autonomy? That curiosity compels them to set aside their controlling posture and step closer. This isn't a tactic to lure them back. It's a journey of self-elevation so that when they reappear, You both can embark on a new chapter, one that doesn't replay old scripts but writes a story of mutual respect. They return not because they lack you, but because you've become indispensable. So ask yourself, are you ready to shed the shadows of dependency and become the version of yourself that cannot be overlooked? Continue nurturing faith in your own worth, because when you no longer need them to feel alive, the life you live becomes the very force that draws them back through eyes filled with astonishment and admiration. And when all the emotional crescendos from hurt and astonishment to awakened insight have led you to this pivotal juncture, it's time to choose. Not to keep fighting the pain, but to pause and be reborn. True, no contact isn't a strategy. It's a sacred pause to reclaim your emotional power. It's not a calculated psychological trick to make them return, but a ritual of inner cleansing where you grant yourself peace. A sacred pause to look within, to nurture, and to rebuild from the roots. In that silence, you begin to hear your own inner voice, the one that has been drowned by longing and confusion. You listen to the desires long buried, the urge to be acknowledged, the craving to be understood, and above all, the yearning to love yourself. This is the first step of the healing journey, reconnecting with your true self. You allow yourself to cry if you need to feel anger if it's genuine, and most importantly, to relinquish any outcome-based pressure. The goal is no longer to bring them back, but to find your own inner serenity. Day by day, you invest in things you once neglected, the book you always wanted to read, a short trip with friends, an artistic hobby, or simple morning meditation. Each of these activities not only soothes emotional wounds, but also fuels positive energy, rebuilding the belief that life can be full of meaningful, unbound moments. You learn that true happiness relies on no one but yourself. Along with cultivating positive habits, you begin to set healthy boundaries for yourself. You realize that you used to magnify others' emotions as a measure of your own worth, but now you understand. Your value isn't measured by how much they miss you or reach out. You clear out meaningless contacts, making space for yourself and for relationships that truly appreciate you. Saying no to demands that hurt you becomes an act of self-respect. During this process, you also focus on reaffirming your personal value through small wins, improving professional skills, practicing physical exercise, and nurturing healthy social connections. Every small success is evidence that you can stand on your own without any approval from the one who left. This growing self-reliance cements your confidence in your own abilities and frees you from depending on anyone else for validation. Gradually, you begin to feel tranquility, a state of mind no longer bound by the past, no longer hijacked by emotional whiplash. Your heart feels lighter, your mind clearer, and you know that regardless of whether they return, you have already achieved a critical victory. You've reclaimed control of your own emotions. In the end, that sacred pause is not merely a transition, it is a ritual of rebirth. You don't simply heal from the wounds of a past relationship, but you also forge a new version of yourself, stronger, more confident, and firmly rooted in self-worth. And when you step back into the world with that resilience, every future connection will be built on a foundation of respect, mutual sharing, and healthy independence. This is the true power of no contact, not as a tactic, but as a divine invitation to heal the soul. After you've undergone the sacred pause and felt the renewed breath of your spirit, the healing journey does not end, it merely begins a long process of reconstruction. This path is where you don't just mend wounds, but sow seeds for a stronger, more complete, and more confident version of yourself. Think of it as an inner marathon. Every step you take, every breath you draw matters not just to survive, but to truly shine. First, maintain a self-observation routine. Each morning, spend 5 minutes journaling your present emotions, happiness, stress, frustration, or excitement without editing or filtering. This habit helps you recognize and accept every fluctuation before it accumulates into overwhelming pressure. When you identify your emotions, you become the master of them rather than letting them dictate your life. Next, create a long-term personal development plan. Choose a new skill to master, perhaps learning a language, practicing deep meditation, or exploring a creative craft like painting or writing. Define clear goals, break them into manageable phases, and commit to them. Achieving small milestones triggers dopamine release, fueling pride and energy to keep going. These incremental successes reinforce your belief in your own capabilities. Don't overlook physical self-care as an integral part of mental healing. Establish a balanced exercise routine, whether it's walking in the park, gentle yoga sessions, or strength training to build resilience. Balanced nutrition, proper hydration, and quality sleep boost endorphin production, translating into a positive mindset. A healthy body supports a strong, stable mind. Socially, proactively expand and refresh your relationships. Step away from connections providing false security, and seek out old friends, colleagues, or community groups aligned with your interests. Genuine interactions remind you of humanity's richness and dispel loneliness. Share your true feelings openly. You'll discover the power of authentic connection. Simultaneously, invest time in learning from experience. Read psychological books, listen to expert podcasts, or watch educational content from those who've walked a similar path. Don't passively consume, select, and apply insights fitting your personality and circumstances. Real transformation occurs when you convert theory into practice, grounding healing in sustainable action. Incorporate gratitude practice each evening by listing 3 things you appreciate, maybe a warm morning coffee, a meaningful chat, or a stunning sunset. Gratitude shifts focus to small positives and dismantles the habit of comparing yourself to others or an imagined perfect self. Your mind rewires toward optimism and joy. Equally essential is time for inner stillness. Despite journaling, skill building, exercise, and socializing, carve out moments free from social media or relationships, just you and your breath. In this silence, you connect directly with intuition and your inner strength. Each minute of meditation or quiet reflection brings you closer to your core truth. Concurrently, embrace new challenges, a solo trip, a volunteer project, or a short course far from home. New experiences push you beyond your comfort zone and force you to face hidden fears. Overcoming them grants not just skills but tangible proof of your adaptability and self-confidence. Finally, throughout this journey, practice self-affirmation and celebration. Look in the mirror, smile, and say, "I'm proud of today's progress." Treat yourself to a relaxing evening, a small gift, or a handwritten thank you note to yourself. Recognizing your efforts nurtures the strongest self-esteem. By integrating these practices consistently, you not only heal past wounds but build a rock-solid foundation for the future. Regardless of any future relationship, you approach it from wholeness and independence, ready to share without fear of loss, to love without needing control. This is proof of a soul restored and liberated, fostered by the sacred pause of no contact, yet truly sustained and radiated by you. The end of your no-contact journey isn't marked by a returned message, but by recognizing how much you've transformed. You are no longer the person drained by waiting. You have become active and grounded. You've learned to honor others' space while setting healthy boundaries to protect your worth. Along the way, you've uncovered 2 vital truths. Silence isn't a weapon, but a healing melody. True value isn't in being missed, but in existing fully, independent of anyone else. When you honor yourself, live your passions, and ignite your inner spark, you naturally radiate positive energy. That energy draws them not because you force it, but because you exude confidence, peace, and independence. And whether your path leads you into a new relationship or back to an old one on entirely new terms, you now carry an enduring secret. Love yourself first, then love others. This isn't selfishness, it's the foundation of every healthy connection. Remember, every step back into no contact was actually a step forward toward inner freedom. Every moment you invested in yourself placed another brick in the fortress of your emotional well-being. The road ahead may have bumps, but you no longer fear them because you now hold an unshakable power. You deserve love even when you no longer chase anyone else to prove it. The journey from agonizing messages to the pinnacle of genuine indifference isn't just an odyssey with an avoidant partner, it's a voyage inward. You learn to drop the life raft so you no longer confined yourself to rescuing them, then confronted the loneliness in the void and gradually ignited your own inner light. You navigated trials, returned texts, the emotional mirror, the existential void, fake comebacks, and guilt lever tactics to recognize the boundaries that need protecting and the worth that must remain intact. Now, as a silent observer, you are no longer swept up in their emotional drama. Instead of seeking validation from outside, you affirm your value through actions, upholding boundaries, prioritizing your needs, and embracing your healing process. Your soul is whole, and true freedom is the moment you no longer await any gesture from them to feel complete. Remember, silence is a powerful proclamation of your boundaries. Non-reaction is the way you honor yourself. True indifference shows that you're fully self-sufficient. A healthy relationship doesn't begin with dependence or rescue, but with two independent individuals meeting, respecting, and connecting. When you stand firmly on your own feet, any comeback from them becomes merely a test of your resolve, and you have already won. Now, you may move forward in peace, ready to open your heart to genuine connections where love is given not from fear of loss, but from a desire to share and respect one another.